volcano and is considered one of the most in the
So I think this is a picture that you all knew, the International Space Station, and Tim was actually the main designer of our Expedition 20 patch. Again, one of the main features that you see in the patch are the six stars that represent six-person crew. This is the Expedition 21 patch, which the main designer and the main inputs from this patch came from my wife Lena, who did a wonderful job for the crew in supporting us in designing this patch.
This is a rocket with Soyuz TM-15, our vehicle, space vehicle, and it's ready to go.
And as part of 20 and 21, we mentioned we had a number of different arrivals on board, different preparation on the U.S. and the Russian side, but it's all about the same. Everybody's getting ready, saying goodbye to their families, and getting on board their spacecraft.
You know, we have two different experiences getting to space. Nicole and I on a shuttle, and the rest of the folks going up on a Soyuz. In either case, 8.5 minutes later, you're in space, and you get very busy preparing your vehicle to dock with the International Space Station.
Rendezvous is a tightly choreographed ballet between the Soyuz, the shuttle, and the International Space Station. The Soyuz and shuttle perform a series of engine burns, so we arrive in the vicinity of the station with a certain velocity, a certain attitude and position. It's an indescribable feeling when that hatch is opened up and we move inside the station and greet our new crewmates. It's so nice to see them. High fives, hugs, big smiles. Everyone's delighted to see each other. Moving into this big space station volume after the tiny confines of a Soyuz vehicle is also a bit surreal as well. It's a big living space, lots of cables, lots of hoses, a little bit overwhelming the first couple of days, but we quickly get oriented to our new home.
And this is Russian EVA on the docking compartment, the preparation for MRM docking. Hatch removing, things like that.
There were 11 spacewalks during the three shuttles that came to the space station during Expeditions 20 and 21. This is me inside the payload bay, preparing the external facility for its removal with the robotic arm. And it was quite an experience. I'm sure Nicole can say the same thing, that there's not something more eye-opening than going out into space.
And a lot of work that goes into being ready for the space or the spacewalk is the time you spend inside getting prepared the night before, getting all the suits ready. And then we always have a person on board that's choreographing for us. I had the real privilege of getting to ride on the end of the arm here for quite a long ride from the station over to the payload bay. Very exciting. And for me, it was neat because it actually felt like everything was moving up towards me, and I was just standing still on the end of that arm holding the box.
We had several visitors. The crew of STS-127, also known as 2JA, delivered 2 platforms to the Japanese laboratory. The first platform was a permanent one that we called the Japanese Exposed Facility.
And then the second one, Julia and I are pulling payloads off of this logistics platform and installing payloads onto the external facility using the Japanese robotic arm.
HTV. This was Frank and Bob and I trained a long time on the ground to work HTV, and we very fortunately were able to work it together on board. We had a beautiful sight of HT coming in towards the station. Then, of course, it was very, very stable as it waited for us to move the arm towards it to grab it. We were very pleased about how stable it was, and it was just a beautiful thing for us. Then Bob went on to do a wonderful job berthing.
Yeah, a couple days after the capture, Nicole and I unberthed the exposed pellet, EP, and handed it off to Frank and the Japanese arm for attachment to the Japanese laboratory. It delivered 2 more experiments to the back porch. And the Japanese HTV vehicle also delivered 4 or 5 tons of internal cargo to the station, so we transferred that to our living quarters.
One of the highlights, of course, during these missions for the crew on orbit is the EVA and the robotic ops. Here you see the MPLM being docked to the International Space Station, and of course, here you see me working with Christer Vogelsang. Very nice for me to be able to work with my European colleague on board of the International Space Station and transferring all this cargo ops together with him. Cargo ops is quite fun to do, especially moving these large facilities. You have no clue on the ground how you would do this, but in orbit, as you can see, things get a little bit easier.
This is progress approaching, I guess, and Max is ready to take manual mode in different cases. But it's okay, and I'm ready also to support progress approaching and docking with the ground. And this is view from the progress. And this is MRM, Russian research module, just docked. And opening the hatch of that, and we see gifts and supplies.
The most important function of the International Space Station is to serve as a world-class facility for doing science. We had a number of and a variety of scientific experiments. Here Nicole is preparing and inspecting the mouse drawer system experiment using 6 mice to help us better understand the bone demineralization problem and osteoporosis, which afflicts many people on Earth. A Canadian experiment from York University examined changes in perception, body orientation in space. A wonderful material science facility called MSG, or Multi-Material Science Glove Box, located in the Columbus module, was used for combustion research. Mike performed an American experiment using it, and Frank, a European one. Another European experiment was called 3D Space. Here Tim is donning a hood and some 3D specs and doing some perception work here as well, just evaluating the zero-G effect of on 3D perception in space.
And this is not a 3D perception, but it's actually a technology demonstrator that also was from the European Space Agency, where we tried to see if augmented reality could help us in performing procedures. And of course here you see Nicole drawing her own blood, something that most of us didn't like to do, but Nicole was very proficient in it. Bob was actually my preferred blood drawer on orbit, and he really was my hero there.
So Mike and I are conducting an experiment using 2 internal satellites called spheres, and some really smart guys in college, guys and gals, developed algorithms so they can fly autonomously together.
This was one of our, kind of the internal part of one of the racks that we have on board, part of the fluid integration rack, or I'm sorry, the combustion rack, and it's, at that point we were changing out some of the fuel cells inside of the rack itself.
We had a number of plant biology experiments on board, Russian, Japanese, and Canadian. It's really interesting to do fundamental science in plant biology, try to better understand why plants grow up or roots grow down, and why they don't do that in space. We also think about plants as being part of a life support system on future Moon or Mars bases as well, being a good way to provide oxygen to the crew and also to treat wastewater as well.
Melfi, just ice cream storage.
As you can gather from the conversation here, we had quite a lot of fun on orbit, and Roman was always there to provide a good crew morale, for which we absolutely have to thank him. For 6 months he was able to do that. But we also had to run a little bit, and you see here we are demonstrating that we are almost ready to accept T2, although on the ground we are not yet. But exercising, of course, is a very important part of our work.
One of the exercise machines we use is called ARED. It stands for Advanced Resistive Exercise Device. And it replicates a lot of the barbell type of work you can do in a conventional gym, or the cable type of work as well.
This is our stationary bike called Civis, and it really gives a tremendous workout. And here you see Nicole on our treadmill, Tivis, and she's getting a good workout as well. Here's Max Sarayev, and You can see he's had a good long workout. I think he's going to float around for a little bit, maybe take his feet off the ground and recover. You know, there's all kinds of exercises that we did to improvise on board, but the push-up wasn't a very successful one for a good workout.
And after Tim left us, we all got really pumped up, as you can see. But what we can say about those exercise devices is that I think every single one of us here came back in better shape post-flight than when we went up. It was, I think, really a testament to the kind of equipment we have on board now. We set up kind of a cool little way to do tours where we could look both forward and aft, and a number of us did that. It was really, really fun to take a tour through the station and see looking both ways.
Yes, and as you can see, as we are floating through this station and as we meet all our crew members, I think you can see that almost all of us have smiles on their faces, and this was basically how it was for about 6 months in a row. We were very happy to be there. We did a lot of good work. We accomplished a lot, but we also had a lot of good fun on orbit, and I think that was what made us our crew so effective throughout our stay. Here we're flying through the to the Russian segment. Nicole taking over from me.
And we come through the PMA, and one of our favorite things I think a lot of us did was rolling through the FGB. It was a nice place to do that, a nice long place to do that. And that brings you over into the service module, and Max is doing the backwards float from the FGB back into the service module. It's amazing what you can do up there.
You know, you just can't imagine how cool it is to look out the window and take pictures of our planet. Here's New Zealand, and every day looking out the window is a real treat. I think all of us would rush to the window to take pictures of our favorite sights.
There were a number of windows to look out and take pictures. One of the ones that we used was a port-facing window in the Japanese laboratory module. And again, from every angle, you got to see just really beautiful and amazing sights of our planet. Some that look more like artwork than what you would expect to see on the surface of the Earth.
This, for example, is the Grand Canyon, and this is Paris, with some very distinct features that we see here. Towns were really nice features to photograph. And as you can see in the next picture that will come up here, also some of the particular man-made islands. I think it's one further because this is Houston, of course, but later one of the man-made islands are, of course, very nice features to take.
Here's Grand Cayman Island you're looking at here. Unfortunately, we see some forest fires and other calamities on Earth as well. Forest fires in oil fields. This is the city of Dubai, near the Straits of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. A very large man-made article that's very easy to see. And the beautiful island of Venice with its canals easily prominent.
A monthly hair cutting, very expensive.
And very scary.
Something wrong with my ear.
A little chop off the ends does everyone good. Even if you only have a couple hairs, you can. and you find out what your crew members are really like.
Food for us was very important on orbit. We must say that now with all the international partners providing their food as well, there is such a big variety of food. Some of us mastered to eat it. I didn't, obviously, so I obviously need to go again. If some ESA staff is present, I would like to fly again to space station to master that kind of part of the job.
I think that speaks for itself. You know, one thing I learned about living in space was that you quickly adapt. And I've always wanted to be like Spider-Man. I had my 5 minutes to try that inside this empty MPLM.
This was the official handover when we went from Expedition 20 to Expedition 21. Of course, it was a joyful time on one hand for Gennady and his crewmates to get back to Earth, Mike as well. But on the other hand, it was also difficult to say goodbye to them, and they became really, really good friends up there. And as you can see here, you're taking part of another crew member that we are going to shove around in the shuttle transfer item number 914 in the last shuttle mission.
So there's mixed feelings when departure occurs. We feel fulfilled that we've accomplished all the objectives of the expedition or the mission, but we also know that we're going to soon be home and seeing our families. It's a mountaintop experience. This is one of our last views of the space station as we depart. World-class laboratory, almost completely assembled, home for 6 people, and represents the future of our endeavors in space.
And this is then the expedition, of course, that is currently on board. So we are present on the International Space Station with 6 persons every day. And New York, of course, part of this big team that help us do that help us explore the solar system and the universe.